Okay, good. All right, we're going to start. My name's Barbara Humphreys, and I am a member of the book club committee. I've been a member of the Leland, North Carolina chapter since 2017, and I'm going to be the co-moderator for this evening's event along with Jan Richards. So before we get started, a few items. We've got a lot of people on the call tonight, so please stay muted at all times during our presentation. To make it easier to see our speakers, we suggest you use the speaker view versus the gallery view. And finally, there'll be a Q&A session with our guest speaker. We ask you to put your questions in the chat feature. In attendance on today's call, we have members, guests, and others who may be completely new to Together Women Rise. All are welcome. We're glad to have you with us. This is a very exciting year for Together Women Rise because we are celebrating our 20th anniversary. We began in Greenville, South Carolina in 2003, thanks to the amazing collaboration of our co-founders, Marsha Wallace and Barb Collins. Today, we have hundreds of local chapters across the US where members learn about gender equality issues, give grants to organizations that empower women and girls in low-income countries, and build community to forge meaningful connections with each other and with women and girls around the world. Our book club is another way to engage in our mission, to learn about global gender equality issues, and to experience community with others who care about making the world a better place for women and girls. For more information on our book club and how to get involved with Together Women Rise, please visit our website at togetherwomenrise.org. Today we will be discussing the book The Kurdish Bike by Alesa Lightbourne. And we are so excited to have Alesa with us on the call this evening. We're going to start today with a conversation with Alesa, and then she has graciously agreed to answer your questions. Please put your questions in the chat. Following our time with Alesa, we will break off into small discussion groups, and then we'll wrap up with our traditional book giveaway. I would now like to call on Jan Richards, who's also on our book club committee, to introduce our special guest speaker. Jan?
Just a second while I unmute. Good evening, I'm Jan Richards and I live in Venice, Florida. I've been involved with Together Women Rise for about 6 years. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you Alesa Lightbourne, who is an award-winning author who taught at colleges and schools, get ready for this, in 6 countries, including Jamaica, the Virgin Islands, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Singapore, and the US. She earned an MA in literature and creative writing from the University of Washington and a BA in anthropology from the University of California in Santa Cruz. She is a passionate volunteer for educational and cross-cultural causes. Proceeds from her book sales and presentations go to support women in a Kurdish village in Iraq, the people that you read about in The Kurdish Bike. For almost 10 years, she's been an active member of the Together Women Rise chapter in Santa Cruz, California. I'd now like to turn it over to Alesa and to Wendy Fradlin from the Together Women Rise staff. She is the Communications and Membership Director, and they're going to have a special conversation that we can share in. As mentioned, there will be time for your questions, and if you could just put your questions in the chat. Wendy is a master at doing 2 things at once, conducting an interview and watching those questions in the chat, and we hope to get to all of them. Ladies, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jan, and we'll see if I can live up to that. But I know we're going to have an amazing conversation. I had a little pre-meeting with Alesa. Was it earlier? Yes, it was earlier this week. It's been a long week. And I found her completely delightful. So I'm excited to do this, have this conversation with her and have you all join in and listen. Alesa, before we kind of get started, I know this is something that you care about very deeply. And I want to acknowledge all of the people in Turkey and Syria who have been affected by the recent earthquakes. And as you mentioned to me the other day, there were an awful lot of Kurdish people who were impacted. And I wonder if you might like to just say something about that before we get into your book.
Well, yes, but it just works me up so much to even think about it's so horrible there. I mean, I don't know what to say about it except that my heart is broken, you know. And it is.
I think many of us, that's all we can say as well. But we certainly do encourage everyone as they're able to support any of the efforts that are underway there. And just so that you're all aware, Alesa did choose to have her honorarium for speaking tonight to go towards those efforts, and will be supporting an organization working there. So I wanted to start off with that acknowledgement, because it is certainly, I know it's in your mind, it's in all of our minds, and want to start off with that. Before we start chatting, I've invited Alesa to do a short reading from her book. I think actually we selected two, didn't we, Alesa, that she's going to do and explain why she chose those.
Well, yeah, we picked two, but we'll see how long it takes. So if the first one's too long, just cut me off. So this is the reading from the funeral. I hope everybody's read the book, but if not, no big deal. So I started riding my bike to this Kurdish village every weekend. And so one day I went and nobody was there in the streets. So with empty streets in the afternoon thickening into dusk, the village doesn't look so friendly anymore. A rooster strutting on the sidewalks tries to peck my legs, and a mangy dog snarls. I've been so stupid to think of this as, quote, my village after just 2 visits. In truth, I'm an intruder, a cultural spy. I shiver, cinch up the hood on my jacket, and turn back to the fortress. Theresa, Befriended, welcome. Besma appears from a gate across the street. Surprised but clearly delighted, she kisses me on both cheeks. Come eat with us. Yesterday, my father's father died. Everyone here. She doesn't ask why I've come. I needn't have bothered preparing an excuse. I help her carry some heavy pots of rice from Ara's kitchen. So Besma is the young woman. She's 19 years old, and Ara is her mother, who's a widow. And this was the family that I became very close with when I was there. To the grandparents' house, where several dozen women are crammed cross-legged onto the floor, and they mumble, Befriended, welcome. They look even more downtrodden than I feel after a particularly rough day of teaching. Each one draped in a black headscarf and a abaya, as the black cloak that they wear there. A smell of sour milk only intensifies the dreariness of the stark little room. Besma introduces me to her grandmother, the widow. Blind, partially deaf, and utterly bereft, the widow barely notices me. When someone dies, we eat together for 3 days, Besma explains. All women bring food. Mans go pray at mosque with body. Ara is already inside and makes me sit right beside her. The women wince when they shift to make space for me on the floor. They must have been sitting here for hours. Let's see. They make fun of my headscarf falling off, and I ask a woman to teach me how to tie it properly. This is hilarious to them. How could a grown woman not know something as basic as tying a scarf? Once they show me the secret, namely starting under the chin, going around twice and tucking in at the end, they watch me do it myself and they cluck in approval. Just when it's time to eat, the power goes out, which causes a murmur amongst the women, but not much more, and they scurry to light candles. Maybe the men are having meat because there's none here. The women toss pieces of flat bread and leaves of lettuce to one another. After tea, we get down to business praying. Off come the prayer beads they've been wearing around their necks. Someone passes me an extra plastic set, which makes me feel wonderfully included. One weazened woman in a white scarf leads the chanting, droning on and on in Arabic. Her fingers are so bent with arthritis that it's a miracle she can manage the beads. When she glances at me, the clarity of her greenish eyes pierce straight through me, and I shiver, as if she's a clairvoyant reading my thoughts. As the chants continue, the women start rocking back and forth, lost in inner worlds, made mysterious by the flickering candlelight. They pray not about grandfather now, Besma explains. They say to God about their life. They ask God many things, many sad things. Well, I can certainly commiserate. The upbraiding I got at school today has left me cold and deflated. I want to pray too, I say. What can I say without looking stupid? Besma tilts her head prettily. Prayer is easy. You say Allah, Allah, or Ayatul Kursi from the Quran. Well, Allah, Allah is pretty easy to do, and it doesn't interfere with the other one-way conversations going on around me. Now we're all swaying in time, like we're sitting on the same porch glider, and the private chants harmonize into a peculiar shared rhythm. We've become like a church choir, old voices, teenage voices, mothers, grandmothers, widows, virgins, all spontaneous, each woman doing her own private litany. It's hypnotic and irresistible, this chanting and pulsing in the shadows, congealing into a shared sorrow. The mystery of phrases not understood forms a heady drug. By the way, the Kurds don't speak Arabic, so they're chanting in a language they don't understand. But words themselves don't matter. We're singing a universal female song, the inevitability of loss and tragedy. And there's a certain comfort in the mutual emotion. We're here together, and together we can bear anything. That's what all those Allahs translate to inside me. And then a quickening happens. My shoulders relax. My worry about being conspicuous vanishes. I am a nameless female surrounded by sisters, all awash in an unutterable sorrow that goes far beyond the dead grandfather. This grief is huge, like a heavy black gas. It saturates the air and fills our lungs. Babies lost before they had a chance to grow. Sons blown up in war. Husbands who betrayed or disappeared or beat us. Daughters who married and moved far away. Oh, damn. Now the tears are streaming down into my lap, and I can't sniff them back. What's going on? I never even met Besma's mean old grandfather. And then it hits me. This is mourning, the real thing. Because of the car crash that I was in on the way to my father's funeral a few months before this, I missed my father's funeral. And even if I'd made it, it wouldn't have been like this. We're a bunch of old Swedes, and we think it's ill-bred to grieve. The only emotions we're allowed to show are cheerful. Now I'm just shuddering uncontrollably with sobs. I miss my father so much. Gone is the firm shoulder in a tweed jacket, scented with his special pipe tobacco. The sideways squint when he cracked a joke. The way he loved to quote Uspensky, even when we all knew he was making it up. So Era, the widow, scoots closer and kisses my head. Kosh, she says, good. Several other women come close too, patting my leg and shoulder, their leathery hands rough but kindly. Their droning fades to a stop, and the women search my face to try to understand. Besma, tell them my father died right before I came to Kurdistan. I couldn't reach the funeral. so I never got to cry for him. They murmur amongst themselves. This is something they understand. We sit in knowing silence, not smiling or speaking, just sitting. And in doing so, they're offering me something which they automatically share with one another as a matter of course, and now extend to me. Never in my life have I sat silently in a group with eyes open for more than a few awkward seconds. Never have I just been with other people. There's always been a purpose to fill up the space between us. Not like now, where some invisible seam binds us beyond awkwardness. And as quickly as that seam coalesces, it vanishes, and I'm doubting myself again. Maybe I'm supposed to do something, but I have nothing to offer them. But then I have an idea. In America, we have a song for funerals. Do you want to hear it? They do. Hesitantly, I stumble through the first verse of Amazing Grace. Above the evening muezzin, whining in the background, the call to prayers. My voice wavers with little strength after so much weeping. I sound feeble and pitiful like a child. I once was lost, but now I'm fine. Found was blind, but now I see. Oh, I ought to just quit. Nobody should be subjected to such lousy singing. But when I stop after the first verse, they motion me to keep going. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. The words echo in my mind as silence creeps back amongst us. I don't have a home anymore. The divorce messed up all that. I still feel blinded, or maybe blindsided, by the car wreck, the train wreck of my life back in the States. But their poise settles like a gentle powder of snow around me, and I take a deep breath. The candlelit gloom feels different now, peaceful, inclusive. I'm certain suddenly that each woman here is exactly where she is meant to be, doing exactly what she is supposed to do, by her simple presence, helping the widow to shoulder her grief, and me to acknowledge mine. I wonder whether recognizing that you're in the right place at the right time can itself comprise a form of grace.
Wow. You know, you read those words, I see everybody clapping. You read those words in the book and they're one thing, and that whole section had an impact on me, but to listen to you read it, and your singing voice is actually quite lovely.
Oh.
You said to me the other day that this whole experience was one of the reasons why you decided to write this book. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, in that moment, I wasn't this rich, miraculous American lady who came to their village, who supposedly has it all together. They saw that I was just an ordinary woman, and that I had sorrows exactly like they did. And from that moment on, I was like part of the women's club of that village. They really accepted me, and they all knew who I was as a person, not as just this blonde lady. And if I can, I don't think we have time for the second reading, but I just want to tell you the other real reason that I wrote the book was there's a scene later on where my divorced husband didn't pay his debts. And so Wells Fargo took every penny that I had in the US, and that was true. And then when I went to the village, I didn't want to tell them, but they wormed it out of me. And Besma said, you know, you don't really have to worry, because as long as you live, you have a home here with me. And this woman who had nothing, who was living on nothing, she was the one person on this planet who said, you can always stay with me. And I realized at that moment that what I had lost was my extra money, what we Americans think of as security, which is money in the bank. But when I looked at myself, I realized I am in perfect health. I have all my teeth. I have born 3 sons and they're all alive. I have a job. I own a home. It's mortgaged to the hilt, but I have a home. I own the world's most valuable passport. And I realize I am wealthy beyond belief, even if I don't have a dime in the bank. And I wanted Western women to feel that humility, that we think our security is money and stocks and bonds, but it's not. It's our sisterhood and it's our connection with other people. And I think that's why I love Together Women Rise, because that's what it's all about. Yeah.
That's amazing. I know that's that passage about all of the things that you did have, and then the generosity of Besma and Ara was really made an impact on me. You started off to write this book, and you thought you planned for it to be a memoir, and along the way, you turned it into a novel, and you say that it is a work of fiction. Why did you make that change from being strictly a memoir of your own true experiences?
Well, I did it for several reasons. The first was I needed to protect the women in the village. There were a lot of illegal, horrific things that happened in the book. Like, I didn't want old Huda to get taken in by the police for cutting. It's illegal. I didn't want Besma to be embarrassed by people knowing that she was pregnant before she got married. It just so many things I wanted to protect them from. But also, when I finished the book the first time, the first readers said, it's too confusing. You've got too many people, and there's no story arc, because real life doesn't come to a conclusion. Real life just sort of keeps going on, and it doesn't end. So that's why I combined some characters. I moved events around. I took events that happened to other people that I knew and put them in the story to make it more satisfying to readers. But everything except the events at the very end, like the box of ammunition in my apartment, that didn't really happen. I had a box of something else. Havar didn't take refuge in my apartment, but somebody else did. So I just kind of put it together to make it more appealing to readers.
But generally speaking, most of that had happened to you or someone else that you knew of, right?
Yeah.
And how do you kind of compare yourself to Theresa in terms of your personality and the traits that she had versus those that you have?
Well, it's me, much to my embarrassment. Like, I had one reviewer on Amazon say, "This is so unbelievable. Nobody could have been that naive." Well, I was and am. And I don't know, this stuff I couldn't make up. It just poured out of my heart, basically.
Tell me, in terms of my internet is a little unstable, so I apologize. If you were to go back there today, what decisions might you have made differently?
Well, I wish I had known what the fortress was like before I'd gone, because I don't think I would have accepted a teaching job there. Their educational expectations were completely different from mine. And I really disagreed with the way they ran the classroom, the schools. everything. I started looking for another job after 2 weeks there because I was so unhappy with the school. I have wanted to go back. I had planned to, but I remarried and my husband had a stroke and I had to take care of him paralyzed in bed for 2.5 years. So I wanted to go back and help Besma start a little business. That was my plan. And at some point I would love to do that. I want her to be financially independent, but she has a Kurdish mindset. She doesn't have an American mindset, and I can't really force her to do it from afar.
So let's talk a little bit about the people that you do have in the book. And I have a few pictures that you shared with me. So we'd like to, I guess, do a little bit of where are they now sort of thing. And how have things changed or not changed in that village? Your novel was in a particular period of time that was relatively peaceful in that area. A lot has changed since that. Give us a little update, and I will share these lovely pictures.
Okay, good. And I'd like to say that I have a 17-minute PowerPoint that I show to book clubs, and where I show all the real people and explain what really happened when we've got more time. Yeah, so that's what Ara's gate looks like. So you can see it's pretty primitive. That's the bathroom outhouse right behind there. You can go ahead and switch to the next one. They still live there. There's Havar. He really did kill Soza's boyfriend. He really did flee. He abandoned Besma when she was pregnant with their third child. So she was pregnant with the first one when they got married, and then he got her pregnant twice immediately afterwards, bam, bam. And I had left by then. So he fled to Iran, and then he said, okay, girl, time to come to Iran and join me. And she said, yeah, like heck, you started beating me and our kids, started beating me right after the wedding. You have a horrible temper. I'm not going to leave everybody I know and go to a foreign country with you. So he said, all right, you're an abandoned woman, which means that she can't remarry. She's still married, but he remarried and he hasn't sent her a dime this whole time. But you can see he's a very handsome fellow, very proud. He was out shooting snakes that day.
Talk about the unfairness of it, that she can't, he's abandoned her, doesn't send her any money. She can't remarry, but he can start a whole other family.
Yeah, he can have 4 wives. Yeah.
We'll let that just sort of sit there.
Well, but under
I
Islam,
love this.
he's supposed to support all wives the same, but there's nobody enforcing it. So here we are inside their house. On the left is Besma. There's me and there's Ara on the right. This is all the furniture they have. So they sleep on the cushions at night and we sit on them in the day. I covered my hair all the time out of respect, because to a lot of Muslims, the hair is the most erotic part of the body. So if you don't cover your hair, it's like walking around topless. And it's that offensive. So I dressed very conservatively and, tried to respect their traditions. And then here's the funeral. That was the women sitting next to me. That funny little thing that looks like a microphone, that's because this is a screenshot off of a PowerPoint. So that wasn't really there. So you can see I was all covered up at the funeral, which really happened. Go ahead. And when I talked about Ara filling my knapsack with food after the Wells Fargo incident when I was penniless, this is the food she actually put in a scarf and stuck in my backpack so I could take it home. And I said, no, Ara, I have plenty of food in my apartment. She said, no, I want you to have family food, family that was made with love. I mean, she's just so sweet. And that givingness of them That's why I've been feeding them for 10 years now. And here's So's. She really did burn herself to death when Havar wouldn't let her marry the guy that she wanted. So she was about 18 at the time. So that's the real So's. And this is Havar's family's kind of cabin up in the woods. So this is on the border between Iran and Iraq. And most Kurds have a house up there in the mountains where they can go in the summer, because in the summer it's about 120 in the shade for about 5 or 6 months of the year down in Erbil where they live. So they take their flocks up to the mountain top, and it's really lovely up there. It's cool. They can grow their tomatoes and cucumbers and things. So that's what one of the summer cabins looks like up there. And
That's great to see those photos. Really nice to see the people that you wrote about. So from what you understand, has the situation for women and girls in this area improved at all since you've been there?
No, unfortunately, things got way worse. So I was there right after Al-Qaeda and right before ISIS, which they called Daesh. So the village lost a lot of young men fighting ISIS. ISIS came within hearing distance of the village, and they closed down the airport, which is right nearby. So that it was very, very serious with ISIS. ISIS is still active, unfortunately. In 2014, remember when gas prices went down so wonderfully for all of us in the West? Well, it bankrupted countries like Iraq that depend for oil revenue. So that's when the government stopped paying salaries. They stopped paying soldiers, policemen, teachers, civil servants, and they stopped paying widows' pensions. So in 2014, Ara stopped receiving the little $200 a month she was getting as a widow's pension. So what they're living on is every household in Kurdistan receives once a month a sack of flour, a sack of rice, sugar, tea, cooking oil, and that's it. So unless you've got somebody helping you out, like somebody has a job someplace, that's what you're living on. So that's why whenever I speak to a book club, I take up a little collection, and then every penny goes to the village, and that's what gives them eggs a couple of times a week, chicken twice a month, some fruit, some vegetables. I don't know whether they're still doing the cutting, the FGM, because it's not really something you can ask on Facebook or FaceTime. So Besma and I talk every week or two, but I can't really say, oh, are people still cutting young girls in the village? Because it would sort of be like calling up somebody on the phone and saying, hey, how about that abortion? Did you, it's just very sensitive. So yeah, so I don't know if that's still going on. It's something I could only ask if I was there again.
Yeah.
But economically, it's much more dire than when I was there.
Right.
Especially for women, because village women can't work. I've come up with all kinds of ideas for little businesses we could start, like selling cupcakes, selling donuts or cookies or something. Besma goes to the head man, and he always says, nope, that would be unseemly. You would look like a bad woman because she doesn't have a grown man in her house. So her kids are now 11. The oldest boy is 11, and then the oldest girl is like 9.5, and then the youngest girl is 7. So they're all in school now.
Right.
But Ara is sick. She has sciatica. So Besma's really stuck at home, taking care of her mom. And there are no jobs in the village. There's really nothing she could do.
Now I'm kind of bouncing a little bit to some of the questions in the chat. So people have put some in, and if you have questions, please add them in there while we continue this conversation. Someone is asking about how do you send money to Besma, and please mention what you talked to me about the other day, the PayPal account that people might be able to contribute to if they choose.
So on the website, kurdishbike.com, there's a little donate button. And even $5 buys dinner for the whole family. Every penny goes to the family. It's not a 5013C or anything like that. This is just my own little deal. But I was using Western Union, and then they closed me down because I was sending money to Iraq so often. So now I use MoneyGram, and both Western Union and MoneyGram, they charge me $5 every time that I do a transfer. So I send her this number on FaceTime, and she goes into Erbil, the city, and they give her cash, and then she sends me a picture, so I know that she got all of the cash. And then she shows me pictures of like, oh, well, every August we have to buy school books and school uniforms and shoes and backpacks and jackets. And so she'll line up the kids and send me a picture of that. Or she'll go and buy a bunch of groceries and she'll send me a picture. So I know the money's going there.
Well, and of course, this is entirely up to anyone, but I know our Together Women Rise members and how generous and compassionate they are. If you do want to check that out, visit her website at the Kurdish Bike. I wanted to ask you, you have traveled all over the world and you've taught in multiple countries. And, you know, when you visit these countries or when you go to work in these countries, do you ever, you know, do you pick them based on the customs and the situation, or does that influence your decision at all? And what have you kind of learned as some of the commonalities that you've seen with women and girls in these different countries you've worked?
Well, this might sound funny, but I love to live in countries where people have a religion. It just adds a dimension, no matter what the religion is, that there's a spirituality that you can, there's a goodness kind of that you can easily tap into, particularly women. Women tend to be way more religious and to run their lives around whatever the culture tends to be. I went to Singapore because I was offered a job as a founding professor at like many times what I was earning in Kurdistan, and I needed the money, so I went there. But when I picked Kurdistan, that what I wrote in the book was absolutely true. One Friday night, I sent my resume out on the internet to 5 places I could not have found on the map. The more exotic they sounded, the better, like Uzbekistan, Surabaya province, you know, just whatever. I was like casting it out to the fate, you know. And half an hour later, Madam called me. This is 10:30 at night on a Friday night and said, we want to interview you right now. Monday morning, I had an offer in my inbox. So I figured, okay, this has to be fated. And they wanted me so badly. Well, that's because Rabinowitz had run off and left the kids with no teacher for several months. I mean, the kids were just sitting there with no teacher. So yeah, I went. And I went to Jamaica.
And I
went to
assume that you feel it really did turn out well after all. You got so much more from it than just teaching in the fortress, as you say.
Oh, it was life-changing. the way that the village women took me in, it changed everything in the way that I look at life, at money, at work, at America, at everything. Yeah, I don't regret a second of it. Even though, I mean, when you live overseas, it's hard. It's not exactly fun. You're lonely. Every day brings a new challenge, but you're growing. You're just experiencing life to the fullest. And that's what I wanted.
So there's, turning to the questions here, there's a number of questions about whether the deal that you made with Old Huda about not cutting anymore, whether that was a real deal, and if you were able to make any sort of impact on, you know, the whole tradition of cutting.
Well, that's a great question. She did promise me that she wasn't going to do it anymore. But see, that's her only source of income. And also, you walk a very fine line. You don't want to be judgmental and impose your culture on them. And it's not so clear cut. Like, okay, if she stops cutting, there are going to be a bunch of little girls that can't get married because they consider your hands unclean. You can't cook for anybody if you're not cut. So it's not just a matter of not cutting. It's a matter of changing the whole culture. Everything is connected together. I mean, what I wish we could stop is the honor killings. 3 women that I knew when I was there were killed by their husbands, brothers, or fathers for things as trivial as getting a message on their cell phone that their husband didn't recognize. And they just walked in the kitchen and shot them. I mean, that's worse to me than the cutting, is just the random killing that the police don't even investigate, because this is a tribal society. So it's all tricky. And that's what I tried to talk about, was that moral dilemma, is there is not a clear-cut answer. Like,
Absolutely.
a lot of the girls want to be cut because they think that they're going to find the best husband that way. So you've got to change their beliefs as well as just the practice of the cutting.
Right, right. 2 last questions. One is, at the end of the book, there's sort of a hint of a promise that you might get this job and create a better school in Kurdistan. Did any of that transpire?
No, I made that up. But the cheating was true. It wasn't Madam, it was her deputy. We really did that. And I saw a question about Rabinowitz. He was absolutely true. I could never have made him up. Everything about him was true. I mean, he was exactly like that. He really did marry a Saudi girl. When I became dean of a college in Singapore, he wrote to me and asked me to get him a job at my college. No, that did not happen. So, and then he unfriended me from Facebook. So I've lost touch with him, but I would bet my bottom dollar that he joined ISIS, because that was his kind of thing.
Yeah. Last question for you is, what are you working on next?
Well, I took several years off because I remarried after this whole thing. I married a friend from college and he had a massive stroke, and I cared for him in bed for 2.5 years, and then I couldn't do anything else. But after I sort of recovered emotionally and physically, I started working on a book about the 5 years I spent in Saudi Arabia. So that was a long time ago. That was 40 years ago, but not that much has changed there. Not in the outpost where I was. So that's
any sort of timeline that we can expect on being able to read this new book?
No.
Good for you. Yes. I'm sure authors hate that question. Like, what do you mean timeline? I'll get it done when I get it done. Well, I know that
after you nurse someone through a death, I know, I'm sure a lot of the people on this call have done that, and you sit beside them when they die. You evaluate life differently. And so like now, if the book happens, great, but I'm busy living. We've got to live each moment that we can, because you just never know what's coming next.
Well, Alesa, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to our moderator, Jan, now, as we wrap up this great conversation.
Thanks very much. When you're in a position like I'm in right now as being the moderator, and you say thank you, there's always that. I think I speak for everyone to say, your time with us has been particularly special, and we've all taken away so much. But I do feel like I can speak for everybody and say that from my heart. I was looking forward to this because I enjoyed the book so much, but I don't think there's anyone on the call at all that hasn't learned something, been fed by our experience tonight. And we all look forward to further interactions with you. And in fact, for those of you who haven't been on the Kurdish Bike website, there's ways to interact with Alesa all the time. Please spend some time letting her know how much you appreciated this. And also, if you have read the book, and if you haven't read the book, please do it. Then go on Goodreads, go on Amazon, go on any place where you can review the book to let other people know what a wonderful story it is and how much it has impacted you as an individual.
Thank you. And well, also, I'd like to add that I love talking to book clubs. And so if you're in a book club and you want me to appear, I'll send you my little 17-minute PowerPoint. And then I come on Zoom and answer your questions. And I just love to do it because I love to talk about the Kurds. So just send me an email, go to the website, it's kurdishbike.com. And there's contact me, and yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Great. I knew that would be your reaction. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Barb for a few instructions about how the chat will work. Barb?
Okay, thanks, Jan. All right, so we're going to momentarily break out into our small discussion groups. We'll be in the breakout groups for about 15 minutes, and then we will reconvene as the entire group. We came up with a question that you can use or not as a discussion item, and that is, have you ever wanted to leave everything and move to a foreign country like Theresa did? Did you ever do so? Why or why not? So it's just a suggested question. Your group can use it or come up with their own discussion. But we will break out into our groups and then return for some final thoughts and announcements. Okay, all right, so a few final announcements. Our book club committee is working on event dates and speakers for our next big read events. The books we've selected for 2023 include The Girls in the Wild Fig Tree by Nice Lengete, Nervous Conditions by Titi Dangarenga, Secrets of the Sprakar, Iceland's Extraordinary Women and How They Are Changing the World by Eliza Reid, the First Lady of Iceland. Please watch our website and your emails for more information coming very soon. I want to encourage people to join Goodreads if you're not on it already, to continue these discussions, to make book recommendations, to obtain recommendations. And as Jan said earlier, please leave a review there and elsewhere for Alesa's book. It would be much appreciated. We also have some other special events coming up. Our monthly webinars take place on the first Thursday of each month. Our March webinar will be March 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. One of our guest speakers will be Stephanie Sinclair, president and founder of Too Young to Wed, our March featured grantee. Together Women Rise is funding a project in Kenya to reduce the occurrence of child marriage and female genital mutilation, while also increasing school attendance and literacy. Please join us also for a special live stream event in honor of International Women's Day and Together Women Rise's 20th anniversary. The event will take place on Saturday, March 4th. There will be an in-person event in Santa Clara, California, and then an online portion where we will live stream our keynote speaker and panel discussion with past Together Women Rise grantees. The live stream portion will begin at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. This event is open to everyone, and you can find more details and register by visiting our website at togetherwomenrise.org. Please join us for this very special celebration. And now Wendy's going to spin the wheel to see who wins the book giveaway.
Thank you, Barb, and thank you to you and to Jan for doing a great job moderating tonight. Thank you to all of our volunteer book club committee, by the way. They do a great job on these events. And a little shout out, one of our book club committee members, Martha Thompson, has already gotten the author of The Girl in the Fig Tree, Girl in the Wild Fig Tree, Mies Langhetti, has agreed to speak at our event. This is a fairly recent book, I believe, and we haven't set the date yet, but stay tuned. So the winners tonight, the 3 winners, usually we can tell you exactly which book it's going to be. I can just tell you it's going to be one of those 3 books that are still yet to be scheduled. So you'll be surprised when you get it in the mail. You do not have to be here to attend. We'll spin the wheel and hopefully maybe one of you will win. Here we go. Right, Christine LaFleche. Hope I'm saying that right. And our second winner will be Nancy William. Don't you love these sound effects? And finally, we will send a book to Mary. Mary was on here, I know. And I'm not going to attempt your last name, Mary. Grisdiak? Are you still there? Yay.
Yes, it's grease a deck,
Wonderful.
like to grease a deck of a ship. Thank you.
Grease a deck of a ship. I'm going to remember that, Mary. Thank you so much.
A hard
Well,
one. Don't worry,
congratulations to our 3
nobody can
winners.
pronounce it.
I had a name like that before I got married, so I can relate.
Well, I was
Thank
stubborn.
you
I
so
kept
much.
it.
All right.
Thank you.
I think that's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us again and look forward to seeing you at one of our future events. Take care, everyone.